Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we're going to look at a number of different things that you might want to deal with around your house, including making it safer. There's a lot of anti-slip methods that are out there. We'll share with you a few of those. Also, do you have a leaky chimney? We have a way to diagnose exactly where that chimney is leaking. Also, over the years, I have dealt with a lot of sunken living rooms, and it's quite a trip hazard in most homes. Most people just are tired of the danger that comes along with it. What can you do? We'll share that with you as well. And do you have a hardwood floor that's just got a lot of scratches, just normal wear and tear? Do you have to refinish it? Actually, you don't. We'll share with you a way that has worked very, very well, including something I did at a house I just sold that I lived in for many, many years. And also, Joe, what about that simple solution?
Yeah, I've got a great tip on how to make cleanup a lot easier when painting with a brush.
That sounds perfect. A lot of paint projects out there. Okay, a lot to do. Let's get going. Hey, let's get right to the Today's Homeowner Hotline. Going over to South Carolina. Worthland is on right now. Welcome to the show.
How are you?
We're doing great, and understand that you saw something on our television show recently that piqued your interest.
I did. We've got, actually it's my sister's house, but I'm spending a lot more time there right now. And we've got some serious skidding issues on a tile floor and a garage.
I see. Okay. Well, I tell you what, there's so many situations with, and I really don't understand a lot of times with tile that will just look fantastic. It looks great, but it is so prone to getting a little bit of moisture or condensation, and just about impossible to walk over that. So you have tile in the slippery area you're speaking about. It has ceramic tile down.
Yes, and they're very frustrated because they picked one that supposedly was the safest, that supposedly gave you the best traction. And, we're all getting older, and both of them have some back and neck issues, and they've got a hot tub on this. It's like a Florida room that was closed in, and it's not so much the condensation. It's like we've had a lot of rain lately, and the hot tub had a leak. And when you're out there, I'm still a nurse, and I wear shoes that supposedly are really good non-skid, and I've never skidded in the hospital, but it's like I'm ice skating on this Florida room, and it's a real danger. The other thing is they've got they spend a lot of time in the garage with their crafts and stuff, and they've got this flooring that was put over the cement that's like a gray base, and then like the things that look like the terrazzo flakes on it, and then the surface. And it too was supposed to be, pretty non-skid, but it again is like you're ice skating. I mean, I just like walk in this funny posture when I'm going, into their garage with the groceries, because I don't want to fall either.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it is a very common problem, and actually a slip and fall is what caused the owner of Deitch Coatings, Peter Deitch, to develop this anti-skid material that you saw us use on one of our television shows, and it's called Track Safe. And it's a perfectly clear material. You can put it on any type of surface, very easy to apply. It doesn't change anything other than it gives it a little bit of that anti-skid properties that you're looking for. And the easiest way to find it is just go to their website, and you can order it, and he'll send it straight to you. It's DeitchCoatings.com, and that's spelled DAICH, coatings.com.
Okay.
Very, very easy, and it also has video on there and explains more about how to use the product and so forth. And boy, if we can keep some people from falling down and hurting themselves like that, it's certainly well worth it.
Well, I work with mostly the infant and pediatric population, but I know that once a person over 65 fractures their hip, they have a 50% chance of dying, or about a 50% chance of dying in the next year or two.
Yeah, I read a statistic very similar to that, and boy, that really drives home the seriousness of trying to prevent a slip and fall like that. So, like I say, Peter, he fell going out to his pool and made him so mad. He, of course, he's kind of that chemist inventor type anyway, and he's got a number of other fantastic products. He went right to work and in no time came up with this solution, tested it out real well, and then we've used it a couple times. So, but that should take care of it, and certainly appreciate you being on the show today. And again, that's Track Safe from Deitch Coatings.
I've got it written down. I really appreciate it, and I enjoy watching you, although my area, you're on at about 4 o'clock in the morning, but luckily I'm a night owl.
Oh, well, good. And yeah, a lot of times we'll have some of those early, so many people DVR the show. And then, of course, now with us being on so many of these streaming platforms, we have a lot of people watching on Amazon and Pluto and all these many, many others that we're launching on. But thanks so much for being part of the show. Let us know if we can help you any other way.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our pleasure.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And we're going to go right to the hotline right now. We have Susan from Massachusetts.
Hi. Every single time it rains, the sheeting on the inside of the attic gets wet, right? Perfect outline to where the chimney is. We have had the chimneys reflashed probably 4 or 5 times. We have had the chimney bricks sealed several times. We have had chimney toppers custom made so that no water gets in there because early on we were getting water down in the trap. We have had crickets made on the backside because of the pitch, thinking maybe water was getting in there. And the chimney on the right-hand side, there is an attached garage, and it's from the roof line down. There is cinder block. That gets wet pretty much to every rainstorm. The ceiling in the garage, we've lost part of the ceiling. Some of the insulation is hanging down because it had gotten so destroyed. With all of these interventions over the years, it has gotten better, but it still hasn't stopped completely. My guess is that the clapboard on either side has to be taken off and actually flashed where the sheeting meets the brick. I can't get a contractor to listen to me. If you guys could solve this mystery for me, because I'll tell you, I cannot find a person on the planet that can figure this out. I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Oh, boy, I can hear some frustration in that voice there. That's a recorded call that came off of today's Homeowner Hotline. They want to see if we can help Susan. Well, Susan, I'll tell you, maybe it's not a leaky chimney after all. Maybe the leak is just showing up at the chimney and it's leaking from somewhere else. I've often seen where you might have a roofer or two, or in your case, it sounds like several, out and not really be able to find the leak. And then you get that one person that walks up there and go, there, it's that loose flashing or that loose nail that's causing the problems. But I'll tell you, many, many times when we've had problem leaks, wherever it is on the house, I found that if you'll take a water hose and a sprayer and get someone in position wherever they need to on a ladder or on the roof. Certainly want to be careful with that. Then have someone else inside on their cell phone, and you're talking back and forth to them on the cell phone, and let them have a nice, strong light, and then very methodically start at the lower part of it. Maybe start at the lower part of the chimney and just spray that water on it just like the hardest rain you've ever had all around. Give it time to see if it's leaking. If that's not it, then move up just a little bit and move up a little bit more and just continue just taking it a section at a time to see if you can force the leak. If you force the leak, then you've pinpointed exactly where it is, and then, of course, you can move forward with that. But I suspect on this, and Joe, the way she described that, it could easily be coming from an adjacent area, maybe a shingle that's been cut wrong, or a nail pop, or a lot of different things like that. And so after she explores this, if she doesn't find it on the chimney, probably needs to do the same thing on sections of the roof, particularly valleys or sidewall flashings.
Yeah, and she did say, what I would recommend is check all the flashing, replace it if necessary. We just had a new roof put on, and they reflashed the entire chimney in that process, which they should have. But in the back of the chimney, there wasn't a cricket. And a cricket's simply like a little metal roof that they build that just sheds water, in our case, snow and water. But she said they replaced the cricket or built a new one. So, yeah, and caulking flashing, you should never even have to caulk flashing. Flashing is supposed to work without needing caulking. So she's right. If you caulk it, that's only going to last for so long. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways water can get in there. It could just be, I'm assuming it's not coming through the brick itself. So I would check the mortar joints too. She didn't mention that. I mean, maybe there's cracks in the brick or the mortar joint. Any adjacent area, wall. She said there's a garage wall that might be damming up water and holding water pressure against it. So yeah, I think the idea of introducing water with a garden hose and then checking it might be a good way to find out where that water is. The good thing is we know it's coming from the chimney because she's seen it several times and it leaves an outline of the chimney on the sheathing. So it's obviously, you're poking a big hole through the roof and trying to keep water out, and obviously it wasn't done correctly in this case.
And another key thing that she said, which should make it easier to find that leak, is that it leaks every time, because those are the leaks that are tricky, is when, it didn't leak this time. And then, the next rain, it leaked. Well, okay, then you're getting into analyzing weather patterns, where's the wind blowing and how much did it rain and when and how. And so those are a little harder, because a lot of times that'll be the situations where it's actually leaking every time, but it just takes a while before it starts showing up. Hey, Joe, I wanted to tell you, I heard from a good friend of mine that's a contractor, remodeling contractor, and he asked me about my use of LVT tile, luxury vinyl tile that people talk about.
Right.
He just had a terrible experience on a large project that he was doing, that he used it on this particular job, and it was a house that was up on piers. Underneath, the house was just as powder dry as can be, no moisture problems at all. They put the luxury vinyl tile down over the entire lower, the main floor there. And then, air conditioning came on, people moved in, everything was great. But what happened is moisture migrated up into there somehow, and maybe the air conditioning, the positive pressure, even though they had plastic on the ground. And he said, you've never seen more mold or mildew than ever. When he peeled one tile up, because it was starting to buckle a little bit, he peeled one tile up, and they had to stop and bring in professionals to take care of all of that. So he was telling me, don't recommend that if it's on a wood floor system. He says it's going to be the new masonite problem that's going to sweep the country. He was, after him having to move these people out and put them in a rental place throughout the holidays and things like that, he was very adamant.
Oh, that's
so
awful.
We'll keep our eye out on this because it may be that extra precautions have to be taken if you're using LVT, even though this guy does quality work, and so it surprised me that he had that problem. But I hate to see a fellow contractor like that going through a tough time like that. But we'll keep you posted on whatever we find out about this particular LVT situation. Time for our Home Depot Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot, where doers get more done. Now, one of the biggest frustrations for many homeowners comes when they need to hang something on the wall. It never seems to fail. You identify the exact spot where you want to hang it, and there's never a stud in the wall behind it. That's why 3M has introduced their Claw picture hangers. Now, these hooks are engineered from hardened steel to lock securely into drywall anywhere, so you can secure wall hangings of up to 15, 25, even 45 pounds. And just to keep things really simple, no tools are required. You just push the hanger into the drywall with your thumb and you're done. Plus, when it's time to move things around, there's no big giant holes left in the wall to patch. So for more information on the 3M Claw drywall hanger, log on to HomeDepot.com. Now, these little hooks, I saw them the other day, and they're pretty heavy duty. They are hardened steel, and they said you can just push them right into the drywall. I found just taking a 12-ounce hammer and just tapping it in there. But just the angle and the way that it goes about it, it's like I say, they're saying here 45 pounds. That'll pretty much take care of anything that you would want to hang on any drywall wall. Hey, let's get right back to today's Homeowner Hotline, where you can call us anytime, 800-946-4420. That's what Jack did here, coming in from Illinois. Jack, welcome to the show.
Hi, Danny. Thank you.
Sure. Now, I hate to hear you're having problems with any hardwood floors, a few scratches there. Any idea how those scratches got there?
Sure. Just normal use. We're about 10 years into a renovation of a distressed estate property.
Wow.
And so we've put in all new hardwood flooring throughout the 3 stories of our house, including the basement. And so most of these scuffs and scratches we have are typical homeowner type scratches, where if you move a piece of furniture and if you didn't have a pad under it, you get a little scratch or a scuff.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, we've got We've got scratches on stair noses. The type of hardwood flooring we have is engineered hardwood floors. They've got about a 1/16 inch veneer on it,
Right.
and it's a slightly different type of flooring in the basement, of course.
Yeah.
But most of them are small scratches, and our problem has been that we have been using pencils, wood pencils, stain markers, putty, and sometimes polyurethane to put a coating on there. But what our problem is that the repairs, which my wife implements, they're beautiful. When she does her repairs, they look great, but they don't last very long. And she's recently tried putting some poly on there so that the repaired areas don't fade away.
Right. Uh-huh.
And but that leaves a kind of a model type finish to it.
Right. Uh-huh.
And so we're looking for best practices for helping us to repair these stains and scuffs in a lasting way.
Well, I'll tell you something that worked really well for me recently when I sold a home I was in I was in there for 29 years, and I think the pre-engineered hardwood floors in the main area of the home I'll probably put in 15 years ago or so. And, the typical things, just like you're talking about there, around the breakfast table where that chair goes in and out, and in my kitchen where, everybody ends up in the kitchen and, have a party here and there, and you have high heels. I don't wear them anymore, but you have people that,
He's back to pumps.
But what I did is, and of course, when you move out of a house and your floors are exposed without the rugs and so forth, you have some discoloration there because of the sun where the rugs were, but you definitely can see all of the scratches. Well, I'll tell you, I was amazed, and I always amazed when I use a product called Rejuvenate from Bona, Bona. And not very expensive at all. It does. All you have to do is clean the floor thoroughly, and then apply the Rejuvenate. And then it's only, if I recall, it's only about an hour for it to dry. And you can put it on like a sponge mop or just about anything. It's not like a polyurethane or something along those lines. And it basically, I always relate it to like the amazing difference when you use Armor All on your dashboard of your car. It's almost like moisturizing, or whatever. But Rejuvenate does that very thing. And I'll tell you what, on all those scratches and all of that abuse that we saw on that floor, I would say it knocked out about 75% of the scratches, and just also gave it just a slight sheen, not shiny, but just a nice finish. And that was it. And it was so inexpensive, and it's available just about anywhere that you would buy something like that. But I think I would give that a try. And also, Jack, a lot of times, in these larger rooms, you can do half the room. Just move everything to one side, do half the room. Hour later, flap the rug back over, move everything over, and do the other half. So it's very manageable in being able to do that without having to move out of the house and all of that. And, of course, the worst-case scenario, if you did have to refinish these floors, you usually only have one chance to refinish an engineered floor before that veneer is just too thin. And you really got to have someone that knows what they're doing when you're refinishing it, but you certainly, I don't think, want to go through that right now.
Right. Let me ask you one question here. I've heard of this Rejuvenate product, and it sounds really good. One of the problems we've been experiencing when we try to cover up scratches and scuffs is that it seems like the factory finish in the hardwoods somewhat repels whatever product we're trying to add to the top of that. And is there anything special you'd have to do with the Rejuvenate product to ensure that it has a chance to absorb in?
I think it's just strictly just a thorough cleaning of that, where you're making sure that there's no wax or residue or, slight deposits of grease or anything like that would repel that, because it's more of a coating than something that actually soaks into the pores of the wood. So with it having an existing finish on it, it will still work. Now, wherever the scratches are, a lot of times that has broached the finish on the floor, and this kind of just fills it in a little bit. Like I said, I was amazed, and it really made those floors look a heck of a lot better. And, of course, I didn't have any furniture in when I did it, but I have done other projects that we've done on our television show where we would have to shift the furniture around a little bit.
Is there a particular product you recommend to clean the floors? For example, like isopropyl alcohol or something to make sure you're removing all the wax so that the Rejuvenate product can sink in properly?
Joe, what do you think on that? Because I know in your flooring book that you addressed that. What would be something that's not so caustic that he could clean that off really well?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jack. I mean, you typically use rubbing alcohol. Now, that would be for spot repairs. I mean, if you're cleaning the whole floor, then you go to a floor cleaner. I've never cleaned an entire floor with rubbing alcohol because you might have to dilute it, and I'm not really sure. Plus, it'd be a lot of alcohol. But yeah, rubbing alcohol is the product to use. Like before, you had talked about using those wax crayon sticks to fill in the deeper scratches, and that you should always clean with rubbing alcohol on a cotton swab first before applying that wax crayon.
Okay, that's great. In our cases, our floors are in good condition overall. It's just in certain spots that there's been some, like I said, some light scratches and scuffs. So, okay, well that really helps. I appreciate your time.
Hey, certainly a little bit of work ahead of you, but I think that'll be an easy, gratifying type of a project. But Jax, thanks so much for being with us. If we can help you more, just let us know.
Thank you again.
We always talk about how amazing it is, how fast these hours go, because we try to pack as much information in without shortening any of the actual information that we provide to you. And so many times things are very, very simple to solve when you're faced with some problems around your house. And as I've said before, that's why the Simple Solutions segment is probably one of our more popular parts of the Today's Homeowner Radio Show. Joe, what do you have for us today?
Okay, Daniel, one of those problems is when painting with a brush, how do you make cleanup afterwards a lot easier? And here's one way. There's one part of the brush that often gets paint. Well, if you dip it in too far into the can or it drips down the bristles when you're painting overhead, paint will drip down the bristles and get into that joint where the metal ferrule, and the ferrule is that metal band that joins the bristles to the handle. Paint will seep into the very top of the bristles where the bristles meet that ferrule. What happens is that paint, of course, dries into little crusty bits, and next time you go to paint it, and plus it's almost impossible to clean it out once it gets in that little joint. And then they dry into little bits, and sometimes those can break off and get into the paint the next time. So how do you avoid that? Well, here's how. Get some painter's tape, 1.5 or 2 inches wide of painter's tape, and wrap it around the brush, around the metal ferrule, but allow it to overlap onto the bristles, maybe like 3/4 of an inch or so. And press it down pretty tightly, and then go ahead and paint. And at the end of the day, when you're done painting, pull off that tape, and that seam, that joint where the bristles meet the metal ferrule, will be completely clean. We won't get any paint in there, and there's no reason for paint to be in there anyway, really. And it makes it a lot easier to clean the brush, of course, because the paint will only be on the bristles up to within 3/4 of an inch or so of that metal ferrule. So that's a simple solution, makes cleanup a whole lot easier.
And I've certainly used that quite a bit. It works really well. And you can even take a Sharpie and write your name on it or draw a little picture.
Yeah, but you always write your name on my brushes. So how's that help me?
That's worked well over the years. When we start cleaning up the brushes, I'll know exactly whose brushes.
My wife Marla said, "It's so nice of Danny buying you all these brushes." So I said, "Those are my brushes." He just keeps putting his name on them.
Hey, I'll tell you a bit of advice is when you're ready for that next paint job and you're strolling through the aisles of the home center, look closely at those brushes. Don't just grab one and walk out the door, because there's a lot of different levels of quality that you're looking at there, and you really don't want a cheap brush unless you're planning on throwing it away after whatever task that you're doing. And get a good quality brush, and then look for all of the tips that we've shared about cleaning the brushes and keeping them structured properly and so forth. And also, different brushes are used for different purposes, and there's also some specialty brushes out there. I found one recently, been out for a long time, but it's a real short little stubby handle on it. It almost has like a grip on the end of it, and I have found in so many areas where you're really have a tight area that you're painting in, one with a long handle on it is not the best one to use. So it definitely is worth taking a good look at it. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. We'd love to get a question from you. All you have to do is go to today'shomeowner.com/podcast. podcast. That's what Thomas did when he asked, do you recommend using TapCon screws instead of traditional anchors and screws into a block wall? I am putting together a garage shelving project with 16-inch shelves and heavy-duty shelf brackets. I like the easy installation of TapCons, but want to make sure that my shelves will have enough weight capacity. Thanks in advance for your answer. That's a good one,
Yeah, that is.
When you think of concrete blocks, you think of that being a little more porous. Well, first of all, let's back up, and if anyone's not familiar with TapCons, are all of them blue?
They are all blue.
I don't know why.
The ones made by the TapCon company, they're all blue, yes.
So, okay, these blue masonry type or blue screws that are made for going into masonry of all kinds. But I would think, with a concrete block wall, my hesitation in using TapCons, even though they said it's perfectly fine, is it's just a little more porous. You might put that TapCon in, and since the block most likely, well, I don't want to say that it's all hollow, because if it's being used for an exterior curtain wall, it could easily be, and most likely is poured. But either way, I'm not sure that I would have confidence in that. Of course, I mean, whatever I'm using, I'm putting that construction adhesive on it in addition to it, which will help, hold that surface there. But what would you use if you were in a situation like this, Joe? Would you go with the screws and the lead anchors, or would you go with TapCons?
I've had great success with TapCons. I think I would try TapCons first, and I'd put in, if you ordinarily might put in, if this was a wood stud wall and you could fasten really securely to wood, where ordinarily maybe you'd put in 3 screws. In this case, maybe I'd put in 5 screws. And I assume Thomas is going to be fastening vertical 2x4s or something to the wall and then hanging the shelf brackets off of that. So I would extend those right to the floor.
Right.
Don't cut them short so that they're only being supported by the screws. Extend them to the floors. This way, at least the floor will be supporting part of it. And the most important thing when installing TapCons is always using the right size pilot bit. And so TapCons typically come in 3/16 inch diameter screws and 1/4 inch diameter screws. So use the proper bit. For a 3/16 inch diameter screw, you have to use a 5/32 inch bit. And for a 1/4 inch diameter screw, you drill a hole that's 3/16 inches diameter. And it always has to be about an inch deeper than the thickness of the material, right? So if the material's an inch thick, you have to go 2 to 2.5 inches deep so the screw doesn't bottom out. And they do recommend, TapCon does recommend using a hammer drill as opposed to a regular drill. I use a regular drill all the time. It seems to work fine. But a hammer drill, if you have that feature, does produce a much cleaner hole. And lastly, the most important thing is vacuum out that dust.
Oh, yeah.
And whether you're using an anchor or a TapCon or anything, it's always a great idea to vacuum out the dust before driving in the screw.
All right, great advice there, and a great project, Thomas, and being able to get that garage a little more organized, because one of the things when you're trying to regain and reclaim some of that space in your garage is getting everything that you can up off the floor. I was in a garage this week and that I'm at a homeowner's house, and you couldn't walk through it. I mean, they had no shelves, and everything was just kind of laid out on the floor.
Right.
And I just wondered, man, just a simple shelf here, simple shelf there. I didn't say anything because you know what happens when you recommend it. You have
it becomes your project.
It becomes my project then. Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. When can you start? So, a great idea there, Thomas. And we certainly want to hear from you. Anytime you have a question, you can send it to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. And hey, I really want to say we really appreciate these great reviews. Because of your reviews and a number of great comments that we get each and every week on our podcast has allowed us, I was just made aware of this, in 2020 we had over 600,000 downloads of our podcast. We really appreciate that. And
that's great.
And for you people that are listening to our podcast every week, we really appreciate it. We're going to continue trying to give you the latest, greatest information. And if you have any suggestions of things that you would like to hear on our podcast, we make it very easy. Again, todayshomeowner.com/podcast. I'm Danny Lippert along with my buddy Joe Truini. Thanks again for listening to this Today's Homeowner Podcast. We'll see you soon.